Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome to episode 2 of Suburban Warrior, the podcast. I have a very exciting warrior story for you today. I am thrilled to welcome our guest, my friend and colleague, Julie Ciardi, who is going to tell us a little bit about her journey from corporate executive to entrepreneurship and all of the bumps and bruises that she endured along the way to her success. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Julie. Julie is a life and business coach who helps mamas remember that they are more than mommy. She left a corporate vice president of marketing job of 16 years, leading over 200 people to start not just one, but 2 businesses and a network marketing business. She caught the entrepreneurship bug and has never been happier. She's married and the mom to 3 children. And she is also the host of the More Than Mommy podcast, which I absolutely enjoy listening to all the time. So welcome, Julie, and thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I am so excited to be here, Chrissy. This is amazing. I'm excited for this podcast and just to get a chance to chat with your listeners.
I'm so excited too. And I do want to thank you because with your mentorship and guidance, you have helped me to even be here today, to be able to launch this podcast. So, I think that just speaks to women empowering women and how much you can really have an impact on other people's lives when you care. So thank you for caring about me and this podcast. I'm so appreciative.
Oh, my pleasure. And it's exactly what I love to do. I love helping other moms be able to really pursue their passions. And I love seeing you bring this podcast to the world because women need it. We need each other, man.
We do.
Let me tell you.
We need each other. That is so right. So Julie and I met about a year ago. And when we were at a meeting for we are colleagues in a network marketing business. And I have to say that when I met Julie for the first time, I was just loving your energy. You just put off such a great vibration for everyone that's around you. And so I don't think there's any surprise with all of your success because of all of your great energy and your passion and your joy. But I'm sure that it hasn't always felt that way for you. And so I'd like to kind of start by going back and talking about a time in your life when, maybe you weren't feeling that, you weren't vibrating at that high level or feeling that passion and that energy and what that felt like for you at that time.
Yeah, I love talking about this because I know so many women probably are either in this spot or have been there as well. And so for me, it's so funny. I had this super typical type A story, right? Of like, okay, I do what I'm told. Okay, I'm supposed to go to school and get straight A's. Okay, I'm going to get straight A's. I'm going to go to school and then I'm going to try to get into a great college and do the whole college thing and, get great grades there too. And then, job. Okay, get the job. And then, I guess I'm supposed to get my MBA. Okay, let's do that. And then, now it's let's get married, have kids, just kind of kept following this path that I thought was the path I was supposed to take. I really never even considered that there was another path, first of all, right? So on this path, the next thing. And it's not that I wasn't happy. I was happy. I just was kind of on this autopilot in a lot of ways of thinking of what I was supposed to be doing next. And I, got married, had, 2 kids. I got that great job and really started the corporate ladder climbing and thinking that, again, maybe next level, each level, I'm going to feel more accomplished and, like I'm finding purpose. And I think that's where the big low for me hit, was on this word purpose, because I really thought that becoming a mom was going to be my purpose. Like that was it, yes, the corporate ladder and climbing and all of that, but it was really so I could give my kids and us the life that I wanted to have for them and for me. And I think what was a huge hit for me, and I'm sure some of your listeners may be able to relate to this, was I really struggled after having not one, not two, but then the third child, and feeling like I still wasn't living my purpose, and feeling really guilty about that, because being a mom, I thought that should be enough. Like, what do you mean? Like, being an amazing mom to these three kids, if that's your purpose, that should be enough. And when I actually was pretty depressed, honestly. I would say my third was about, I guess, a year and a half years old. And so that means I had like an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and then the 18-month-old. And it really started to hit me that, my purpose was not just being their mom, but also something else meaningful from like a career standpoint. And I was not feeling like that in corporate. And I pretty much had gotten to probably the highest point I was going to get to in this Fortune 500 company that I was in, where I was a vice president, managing a lot of people in a lot of locations. And I loved managing people. I definitely felt that I had a purpose in that and making their lives better and leading them. But it really hit me that I wasn't aligned to what I wanted to actually do in this world. And that was a huge, like, aha moment. And this is probably one of the scariest moments of my life, because I always had been on a path that really had been set out before me by society, parents, the whole thing, right? And so that was, like, I would say, the lowest point for me was having that moment of, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing in this world, but then feeling so tied financially and, again, on what I was supposed to do. And so, yeah, I would say for me, the biggest dip was not feeling that I had found my purpose, feeling guilty that my purpose wasn't just my kids, and then kind of figuring out, well, what am I going to do from here? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it makes actually so much sense to me personally, because, and I know you and I have talked about this before, but we have very similar stories in the corporate world and feeling the similar way. And, you put so much time and effort to climb up that corporate ladder to get to the point where you're like, what am I doing it all for? There's no balance. You are sick, you're depressed, you're not feeling like you're raising your kids right, you're not feeling like you're giving it all, you're all at work. And you get to the point where the purposeful and intentional, actions that you're taking aren't feeling very purposeful or intentional. And it's that time in your life where you're really asking yourself, your why and what are you doing it all for? And it's scary. And it is absolutely one of the scariest times of life. But I think that you bring up just such a valid and real emotion that a lot of us moms deal with, which is the guilt. And, even today, I know me personally, I have a great job now where I have lots of flexibility. I'm on my own schedule, but yet there's still that mommy guilt in the back of my mind when I'm working and taking time away from my kids, because they are older now and they're teenagers. I feel like they need me. And I'm sure you feel the same way. And I think that mommy guilt that we all have doesn't really ever go away. It's just we try to manage it better. And, for you, do you feel like you've just gotten to a point where you're better at managing it and almost telling yourself a different story so that you're able to be an example to them now and not just mommy.
100%. And I would say that one huge thing that I have learned over the last several years since making the jump from corporate to do my own thing is that whether it's guilt, fear, anxiety, uncertainty, all those things, they never go away. I always thought you had to solve for it and then you'd be happy and then it would be okay. And it really, that's not the lesson of life, is actually how to deal with those feelings that will always show up. At least, I mean, my mentor, the life coach that trained me, she would say 50% of the time, you're going to experience emotions and feelings that aren't the best, like guilt, fear, anxiety. And the other 50% of the time, you're going to have amazing feelings of love and happiness and joy. And being able to be human is to be able to handle both and to know that both are going to happen. And so whether it's guilt, around my kids, or anxiety or fear, because now I'm not on a typical path. Now I'm not, getting that corporate paycheck every 2 weeks. It's very different. Learning how to just be in it and know that it's all going to be okay. And it's how I handle it that makes all the difference. But to not try to experience it, if that makes sense. And I think so for me, I keep getting evidence now that when I have made these pivots, when I do take the time to focus on my business or on me or, something that's separate from the kids, that they have proven to be better for it. And so I think that when you show yourself evidence by actually taking action and doing the things instead of staying in your own head, well, I can't do this because if I do this, well, then I won't be there for my kids. Or if I do this, then, I won't make enough money, to support the lifestyle we have. And we spend so much time in our head that we just contemplating instead of actually giving ourselves evidence by taking action. Because when we take action, then we can see, okay, you know what? This is taking me a little bit further from, time with my kids. So I need to adjust. Or, you know what? This is amazing. I've never been happier. You'd never know unless you actually took the action, right? To see whether or not that's true. But we stay up in our heads way too much.
Oh my God. Way, way too much. And, a quick little story, regarding that, because I definitely wanted to talk to you about the fear and the anxiety because, as coaches, I know we talk to our clients all the time about mindset and how to get over the fear and the anxiety and take action. And, I'm a coach. I say the same thing. But when I was talking to you about launching this podcast, I was saying, you were giving me advice and I said something about the tech behind it. And I said, well, I'm really going to need help with that because I just can't do that. And you instantly were like, yeah, that's just the story that you're telling yourself. And I was like, bam, she's right. That's my own advice right back at me, but coming from someone else that it was. I mean, that is absolutely a story that I just made up, false, came from nowhere, that I was telling myself that I couldn't do it. But why not? Why can't I? So to your point, it's really, we're in our heads so much, telling ourselves stories of self-doubt, of limitations, of why we can't, instead of just looking at what we really want and how we want to accomplish it and taking action.
Yeah. Taking action is everything. And I think it's, whether you believe in God, the universe, whatever it is, it's amazing how when you take even a small action towards a goal of some kind, how the universe or God will meet you and things will start to happen for you. And I can remember the moment I was on a plane traveling for the corporate job. I was heading from New York to Dallas, and I had recently just started having some fun in the network marketing company that we're both part of. And it was just fun for me. And it was a few years ago. And it wasn't about the money. I really was not feeling my purpose, not feeling fulfilled in the day job. And the CEO of the company that we're in, Jessica Heron, her book came out, Find Your Extraordinary. And so I'm reading this book on a plane, and I literally consumed the book. Like the whole book I read on the 4-hour flight. I'm writing notes, scribbling it down, and it literally hit me. Like I could picture myself sitting in that seat right now. It's so clear, the memory, where I just went, oh my God, she's 2 years older than me. She's got, teenagers as well. She decided to leave a corporate career, pursue entrepreneurship, start her own thing, and she's doing it. And it was hard at first, but she did it. And so the key question hit me, like literally, it was almost like the book came up and hit me over the head, which was, why not you? If she can do it, why not you? And I think that's why, you with your podcast, me with my podcast, and what we're trying to do, I love helping people think about what's possible. And when you start to think what's possible and you start to say, well, why can't I do that? Why not me? Instead of, oh, well, she can do that because, and insert whatever the reason is. No, you can too. And I think that when we start to, just to put on that hat of possibility, it's amazing what can happen. Now, the big thing is then you have to start taking action, as we said. But it's amazing once you start taking that action towards something that you really want, you will be met with support and help from the universe or God. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And I think that's why it's so important to go through the fear, anxiety. People are often very afraid, whether it's a podcast, doing a Facebook Live, or, starting something on the side because they're so afraid of what someone's going to think of them. And if you can push past that first hurdle of taking that first action, it's amazing what will start to fall into place for you.
So that's great, because my question to you is going to be, what was your first step? So like after the book hit you over the head and you said, why not me? Because I think a lot of people and a lot of listeners have those moments. Why not me? But yet the fear, the judgment, the self-doubt, all of those things, like I can't get on a Facebook Live. What is everyone going to say? Or what if I actually tell people what my dreams are and they laugh at me? I don't even know the first step to doing it. So they think they can't. What would be your advice to literally take that first step into that fear or into the judgment? How do you get over that hump to just take step one action?
Yeah. So it's interesting because my first step when I came back from that flight was I really spent some time with myself. And I started to really brainstorm, like, okay, what is it? What would I do? And when I started to literally, I'm a huge pen and paper girl. Okay. Like I just took pen to paper and I started to brainstorm what are some of the things that I love and that I could do. And I started to create a plan. I started to research. I started to ask questions of people that were doing it, that had left. I started listening to podcasts, and what I started to do to get through some of the fear was I started to surround myself with positive influences of things I could do. I will tell you right now, I stopped listening to the news and I listened to podcasts like 3 years ago when I really started first listening to podcasts. They were the sound of support and reason and guidance in my ear that I wasn't getting anywhere else. And it helped to combat the fear that I had in myself. So what I would say to anyone listening, no matter what your thing is that you want to, kind of take on and try, or a goal or something, whether it's, and there's podcasts for everything out there. It doesn't matter. Like everything you could possibly imagine, there's podcasts for, or there's audiobooks, or there's, groups on Facebook for literally everything you can possibly imagine. But my first big piece of advice is to start to surround yourself with positive influence towards achieving your goal, whatever that may be. And as moms, I'm holding up my little wireless, AirPods. Okay. These babies are like these earbuds. I'm never without them. Think of all the things that we do. We are emptying the dishwasher, doing laundry, driving everywhere, right? We are doing grocery shopping if we're not Instacarting it. I mean, there's always something where you could pop these in your ears, either get encouragement, inspiration, or the how-to of things. We are living in a time like no other, right? Where, we can push past our fear and the not sure of what to do by really surrounding ourselves with very positive influences. And I will tell you, that is what got me through those initial 30 days after I read that book of what am I going to do? And can I do this? Because I would have talked myself out of it completely if I wasn't putting really positive influence and motivation and inspiration into my body.
I absolutely love that advice because I too, which is so funny, a year ago in January, last New Year, I stopped watching the news. I used to get up in the morning and watch the Today Show for maybe 30 minutes and then have it on in the background when getting the kids out the door. And I just realized that how I felt watching it and hearing the news, everything on there is negative and made me feel sad. So I completely changed my entire morning routine a year ago, and it changed my life. It really did. And it still does. And I still, adapt it a little bit here and there, but it's still my same morning routine. And it kicks my day off starting on a positive note with good energy and already feeling fulfilled an hour and a half into my day, which is awesome. So, are there any daily habits that you do that are in place? It might not be a morning routine, but just something that you feel that you do daily. Obviously, you listen to podcasts. Anything else that you do that you think helps you stay in your optimistic mindset throughout the day?
Yeah, the two big things, 100% I consume something positive through podcasts every day. There's probably not a day that goes by, maybe Christmas Day, where I didn't listen to one of my favorite podcasts. And you can subscribe to podcasts. So hopefully you're subscribing to this one if you're listening, and you just get updated, right? And so you can see what's coming through. So I'll go on my phone, I'll see what came out that morning from my favorite podcasters. And, I always consume podcasts. The other thing that I do, and as I said, I'm a big pen and paper person, but you don't have to do this with pen and paper. You could also do it, digitally, is I am always focused on my goals. So on the day-to-day, as we know, especially as moms, we have so much on our plate, and we're even our best laid plans, as we know, can go haywire as moms. But I have a journal. I write down my goals. I would love to say I do it every single day, but that would be a lie. So I'm not going to say that. But most days I am looking at them and or writing them down as well, on repeat. In fact, I just did this this morning. I got up very early before anyone else, and I'm kind of hitting the reset button on a few things because, we're recording this right before the new year. And I really reset on what my goals were. And my goals, I like to look at them from a longer term standpoint. So maybe this year, what I want to accomplish. And I also look at them really almost like a 60, 90 day period to say, what am I on track to do? And it's amazing. I heard Rachel Hollis say this once, that she's been doing this for 10 years, where she's been writing down her goals and looking at them to stay on course, because life will happen to you if you don't write down what you want and actually put yourself on. It's almost like a GPS system, right? You're putting yourself on the direction you're trying to go in. And that over the 10 years, like she's almost crossed every single one of the goals off as she goes. And it, can happen at different times, but like it's happened, like she's hit the goals. And I can say that for the most part, I'm getting there too. I'm chipping away at these things that like are so important, but it's because I'm staying on the right coordinates, right, of those goals. So I would say constantly consuming something inspirational and motivational, like a podcast or an audiobook. And second, really be clear about what your goals are. And they can change, and that's okay. But keep pulling that out, whether it's a journal. I even have on my phone, I have a vision board on my phone where it's just nothing complicated, but just those things that I really want to happen in my life. And it keeps me focused on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all goes back to what you think about, you bring about. And if you are filling your mind and feeding your soul with positivity, if you are focused on your goals and, write them down, you're 80% more likely to actually fulfill them. And I know I do the same thing. And I find that, I will write goals and I can go back 10 years as well and forget that it was even a goal, because to your point, now you're just living it. Like
Yes.
you had that as a goal and then you achieve it and you don't even really celebrate it or realize it, because some of them aren't huge goals, right? But they're things that you work towards, and then you achieve it and you're like, oh, wait a second, this feels really amazing.
I love that you said that. If I could, it hit me so hard when you said that it's so true. Like I can remember still working for the Fortune 500 company, not happy. I would try to take like a 30-minute walk each day, and I would put my earbuds in and again, listening to podcasts, something to keep me focused. And I would listen to this one particular podcast. It's called She Did It Her Way. And it was all these stories of women that started their own thing. And I can remember I would almost cry because I wanted it so badly. I could taste it. And being like, someday I'm going to be on that podcast and that's going to be me talking about that and all that. Well, yep. Check out 268. I was episode 268. I ended up like, when I really look back, and again, these were goals written down. Like I was going to be on that podcast. I was going to leave this Fortune 500 company. In the moment, it did not seem possible, or the possibility of it was so small that I just wasn't sure. So then for it to happen, and it's so true, like you write them down and then it's to celebrate them and to just like realize that you can achieve these things that you want. You just have to stay focused on them and believe in yourself. That's the key. It's so important, is to develop that belief in yourself.
Absolutely. And I think to your point that you just mentioned, stay focused and continue to work towards it. Because I do think that human nature in all of us tends to, we write it down maybe, or we work towards something, and the first obstacle we hit, we think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do that. Or the first no that we get, or the first time someone has something really negative to say about our dreams or our goals, then we instantly second guess ourselves and say, well, maybe I shouldn't do it, or maybe I can't do it. Maybe I'll never accomplish that goal. And it's so easy to then just stop. And I think it's the consistency in the action, right? That's why I say the daily habits, the listening to the podcast, the 5-minute meditation in the morning, the journaling and writing down your goals, and doing that consistently. That is really where you see the action and the change start to change your life.
100%. And I will say also that if anyone is saying something to you or giving you advice or giving their 2 cents and they do not have what you want in life, do not listen to them.
Exactly.
Okay? You want to listen to the people that have what you want. And so again, it goes back to surrounding yourself somehow. It could be through a podcast. It could be through other women that are doing what you want. Like I am always trying to surround myself with other women that are further ahead of where I am in my goals, so that I can get so inspired by them and get their advice. Because that's the advice I want to have, is from someone who has what I want, not someone who does not have what I want. So that's a huge takeaway, girls. Like, do not take advice from someone who does not have what you want.
I love that takeaway because personally, I feel like I have experienced that in my life because, I lost my mom when I was 20 and she was my mentor and my best friend and everything that a mom could be. And for years, I felt so lost without that. And it was very easy to go into the poor me. I don't have a mentor. I don't have someone to guide me or shape me or tell me what I should be doing. And as I have gotten older and more educated in my own personality and what I need, I realized that there's mentors everywhere. Like you said, we live in this amazing time where I can turn on my computer or turn my phone on and be mentored. It's not anyone else's responsibility but my own to go out there and seek information and seek mentorship from the right people. So I absolutely love that point because you can easily say, well, I don't have anyone in my life to guide me, or I don't know who else does this. Google it. And you can easily find it. So
100%. My biggest mentors didn't know that they were my mentors.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I eventually, funny enough, ended up meeting some of them, and some of them have been on my podcast. But like initially, I just listened and was able to get what I needed right through my earbuds.
Love that. Love that. So I know this might be a tough question because I'm sure you've received a lot of advice over the years, but is there maybe one piece of advice that sticks out to you that's the best piece of advice that someone has given you?
Well, and I can't pinpoint that someone gave me this advice, but it's the premise of my own podcast, More Than Mommy. And this is something I feel so strongly about, is that it's okay to be more than mommy. That we almost like think of yourself before you had children and you were you. Like I was Julie, I had dreams, I had goals. You were Chris, you had dreams, you had goals, passions, everything. And it's almost like, we can fall into that trap where like they hand us the baby and we give them our identity, like it's like a coat check. Here's my identity. Thanks for the baby, and it's like, but it happens to so many of us, and there's nothing wrong with that happening. It happened. My older two, when they were first born, they were everything. And I totally forgot who I was in so many ways. And when I started to wake up and want more for myself, I felt so guilty and all those feelings and like, well, being mommy should be enough. And, all of that. And I would just say that being more than mommy is not only super important for you and yourself, because again, they are going to leave the nest. It will happen. And you want them to leave the nest where you're still intact. And it's going to be hard enough when they leave. Wouldn't you rather it be them leaving and you still being you, and you've pursued your passions and you've kept your hobbies or your goals or whatever it is that is important to you? That's one thing. The second thing, though, is it's so important for the kids, because I want my daughter to be more than mommy. I want my daughter to have evidence that it is okay to be a mom and to pursue other things and to do other things in her life. And I want my sons to give that permission to their wives. Like think about it this way. I always think about this. If I was this mom who literally like did everything for my kids and I didn't do anything literally outside of like the perfect home and the perfect experiences and the perfect food and doing everything for them, when my sons leave and go and they start to get married, what would that do to their poor like wife? What would the expectations look like? Because it wouldn't have had evidence of someone being more than mommy and why that's so important. So if you have a hard time doing it for yourself, my big piece of advice is it's okay to be more than mommy, because it's actually better for your children, and to think of how you want them to be as adults and parents, if that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, makes so much sense. It all keeps trickling down, right? And it's not just you and how it affects you. It's how it affects your kids. And you took it even a step further, which I love. I have, 3 girls and 1 boy. How not only it affects your daughters, because we always think about our daughters, right? How it affects them. But you're right. That is such a great perspective, how it affects your son's wife someday in the future. Mm-hmm. And so that is just such a great perspective, that how not only what we say, but what we do has such an impact on our kids and those around us and those people that we aren't even in our lives yet, and how it affects them.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Julie, I want to thank you so very much for all of your expert advice and inspiration today. I think that you had such a positive effect on me and on my life in the year that we've known each other. And I thank you for that. But you are impacting the lives of so many women through your businesses and through your podcasts. And I am so, so thrilled that you joined me on Suburban Warrior today.
Thank you so much for having me, and back at you, girl. I loved getting to know you over this last year. I'm so excited to see this podcast take off, and I'm just a huge fan. So big congrats.
Thank you. And if you guys want to listen to more of Julie's podcast, More Than Mommy, you can listen to this powerhouse by going on Apple Podcasts and checking her out, More Than Mommy, and subscribe to her. And of course, if you enjoyed this interview, there's much more to come with Suburban Warrior. Please go on, rate, review this podcast, hit subscribe, and you can always check me out on Instagram at Suburban Warrior. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.